Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Bound, the Torzial Affair, Book 2 by Via Mari, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Jenny. We are escorted quickly and efficiently from the limo along a path the Carrington security team has managed to clear for us, cordoning the multitude of news and camera crews off to the side of the walk as we enter the New York City Trauma Center. Brian speaks to the short blonde-haired receptionist sitting behind the expansive curved wood-like counter, giving her Kate's parents' names before we are provided with directions to the second floor. The feel of his hand on my back is comforting as we make our way to the elevator. Just before the doors close, Brian taps out a message into his phone. "I'm letting Chase know we're heading up," he says, answering my question before I ask. The elevator doors open just as Chase Prestian walks out of the intensive care unit doors to greet us. He shakes Brian's hand, and I go to hug him. "I'm so sorry about Kate's parents. How is she holding up?" I ask, looking into his troubled emerald green eyes. "She has definitely been better. I know she'll be glad to see you. The ICU areas are pretty strict about visitors, but as her sister and brother-in-law, you're allowed, so follow me," he says, winking at us before entering the trauma unit. The large square nursing station faces patient rooms with blinking monitors that display their vitals overhead. Chase stops briefly, signs us in, and the young blonde nurse with blue scrubs glances up to ask our relationship to the LaRuzios, accepting on faith the concocted relationship and allowing us entry. My dearest friend in the world is sitting in a chair next to her mother's bedside, and as soon as she sees me, the tears begin to fall, and she rushes into my arms. I hold her tightly against me until her sobs slowly start to subside. "How's she doing?" I ask, taking in her mom's sleeping form, the multitude of facial lacerations, heavy purple bruising, and all the IVs and machines that surround her. "They tried to kill my parents with a semi-truck," she says, sobbing against me. "I know, Kate. I'm so sorry," I say, watching the myriad of emotions cross her features. "She's holding her own. They downgraded her from critical to serious, but I hate that someone did this to her," she says, looking up at me and wiping the tears with the back of her hand. "How's your dad?" I ask, wishing there was something I could do to ease her pain. She glances at Chase, and he nods at Sheldon, who shuts the door before he starts talking. "He's still listed as critical, and while we have every reason to believe he's going to pull through, the official word is that he won't. We don't know how far the security team for Carlos was infiltrated, and there's a lot at stake related to his business and family that requires immediate attention. Jay's taken over security for both families, and Sheldon's running all ops for Katerina. I was going to ask you before he gets in contact with Scotty if you would mind letting him assist," Chase says. "We'll help in any way we can. Let him know what you need," Brian says. "I appreciate that. My dad is with Carlos. Why don't we walk over and say hello?" Chase says, leading us out of the door and into the hospital room next door. Brian shakes hands with Don Prestian, and the men talk in hushed voices over Carlos LaRuzio's sleeping frame and the plethora of beeping monitors hooked up to his body while Kate and I catch up. The nurse comes in sometime later to let us know that we'll need to step out for a short time while she tends to Carlos. "I'm taking Jenny for a bite to eat, and then we're going to stop by the office to pick up a few things. We'll be back a little later in the afternoon," Brian says, putting his arm around my waist. Kate grins at me, and I hug my dearest friend close. "I'll tell you all about it very soon," I whisper before Brian and I are escorted down the long hall of the hospital by the security team. Matt is standing guard at the elevator and joins us. As we make our way outside into the waiting limo, 2 policemen approach. "Get in the car," Matt says to us, stepping in front of the officers. "Gentlemen, I hope you understand, but with everything that's happened to the LaRuzio family in the last few days, we can't be too cautious. We need to run your badges before allowing you any closer to Mr. Carrington and Ms. Torzial," he says to the officers. Brian's jaw tightens as Matt talks with the officers and closes the door behind us, but the window is still rolled down a crack and we can hear most of the conversation. The officers show Matt their badges, and he takes pictures of each. "I'm going to have these and your badges verified, In the meantime, what's your business with Mr. Carrington and Ms. Torzial? Matt asks, texting someone with his cell while the other security members stand guard. We are investigating the murder of Ty Channing and need to talk with Jennifer Torzial, the police officer says. I try to absorb what I just heard. Ty is dead, and they want to talk with me about it. He'll never come after me again, never rape me again, and I am elated that he's gone. But they must think I did it or know who did. My heart begins to pound, my mouth goes dry, and I am finding it difficult to breathe. I feel the band of steel that is Brian's arm pull me closer and tighten around me. Count with me and inhale deeply each time, he says, starting at 10 and working his way back to 5 until I begin to breathe a little easier. Brian hits a button in the sleek black limousine and the window rolls all the way down. She's not talking to anyone without a lawyer. I'll contact my attorney, and you can meet us at my condo later in the day, he says to the men talking to Matt and Jay right outside the car. The officer with dark hair starts to say something, but the taller, red-haired officer nods in agreement. That seems like a reasonable request given the current situation. I'm aware of your relationships with Chase and Katerina Prestian and the recent accident. I apologize for the timing of all this. If it makes you feel any better, it's simply a routine questioning, but please don't leave town, and be sure to call the precinct with a time we can meet before 3:30 this afternoon, he says, handing Matt, my personal security detail, a business card before both officers head back to their patrol car. My breathing is rapid and my heart is pounding. They want to question me about Ty's murder. They must think I killed him, I say as Brian's strong arms pull me even closer, holding me tightly and kissing the top of my hair. Keep breathing. Slow breaths. In and out. It will be fine. We both know you didn't do it, and if they had anything substantial, they would have arrested you or at least took you to the station, he says, softly caressing the side of my cheek with his finger. I nod, trying to keep my emotions in check. It's no secret I wanted him dead. I've dreamt of it ever since he raped me. We'll deal with the office tomorrow. Let's get you home, he says. Wes, Brian's driver, navigates the car skillfully through the midday city traffic, but as we approach Brian's skyrise, the privacy panel between us and security comes down. There are paparazzi everywhere. I'll call in backup and have the driver circle around once they're in place, Matt says to Brian. Damn it, how did the story break so fast? Get them the fuck out of here, Brian says. I can just give them my side of the story so they leave us alone, I say, hating that all of this is happening because of me. Sweetheart, I don't want you talking to anyone about this unless you have my attorney by your side, and he's expressly given you the okay to speak. Are we clear? He asks, raising my chin so I have no choice but to meet his eyes as the driver continues down the street past his skyrise. I nod, and he kisses my lips. You have nothing to worry about. Let me do that, he says, pulling me close, and at this very point in time I know that's exactly what I want him to do. I nuzzle into his chest while he begins sending messages on his phone. Brian, I hate that I'm so much trouble. You're only trouble when you disagree with me. Now do as I say and it'll be fine, he says, kissing me again gently on the lips. Thank you for helping me. I honestly have no idea how I would deal with this otherwise, I say, scared of the depth of my feelings for him. It's not a thing, he says, his eyes lowering to the text he's sending before I can get a closer pulse on his emotions. It's almost 40 minutes later when Matt lets Brian know that we can return to his condo. As we approach, news cameras and crews are still visible, but have been cordoned on either side of the entryway by heavy red ropes and security. The valet opens Brian's door and he walks around the back of the car to take my hand as security surrounds us and we make our way across the walkway to the entrance of the tallest and most prestigious skyrise in the city. The smoke-colored glass and steel structure towers above the surrounding buildings in the heart of Manhattan. The uniformed doorman shakes Brian's hand as we enter and head to his private entrance. Brian keys in the elevator code and we are soon entering his penthouse. Matt is on his phone almost constantly for a short period of time, but then nods to Brian. What's going on? I need to know, I say. We've managed to avoid the paparazzi, but it seems as though they've taken to fabricating stories without facts, Matt says. They're publishing stories about me? I ask, and don't need a verbal confirmation as Brian's hand tightens around my waist. Matt, take care of the perimeter and all the security detail. My attorney should be here in the next couple of hours. Text me when he arrives, Brian says. Will do, Matt says, before he heads downstairs, leaving Brian and me alone in the dining room. I'm sorry you were dragged into this mess, I say, as he takes me into his arms. Stop worrying about it and let me deal with it, he says, looking down at me. Brian, I don't expect you to fix this. I just appreciate you being here for me, I say. Then I don't think you've been listening. The only relationship I'm interested in having is one in which you put your complete trust in me, and I take care of your needs. You're mine, sweetheart. I want you to let me take care of you, he says, pulling me into his arms. I can only nod as his words sink in, and I feel all of the tension of the day begin to slowly subside. Your entire trust in me, sweetheart, he says, wrapping his hand around the back of my neck, pulling me even closer and capturing my lips with his. You mean outside of the bedroom? I ask as he releases me. You already know I want control in the bedroom. In life, I want to keep you safe, make sure your every need is taken care of, and I want you to submit that control to me, he says. God, Brian, on one hand, it's like a fantasy come true, but my dad's business dreams, my dreams now. I need to make these come true for my family. Tell me what you're afraid of, he says, lifting my chin so I have no choice but to look into the storm circulating in those deep crystalline blue eyes. Torzial. It's the only way I have of making my dad's dying wish come true. I have to be able to control things in that respect, I say. Sweetheart, I love your brilliant mind and the work you do. The only control over Torzial I want is the opportunity to review anything that may be a threat to you or it. I wouldn't do anything less for Carrington Steele, he says. I nod. You know, in some circles this would make me an extremely weak female, I say against his lips. In the circles that don't matter. In mine, it makes you my perfect match and the woman I want to wake up with every morning, he says against my lips. I open for him and nip at his lower lip. How is it that he makes every fiber of my being alive and pulsing with need for him? Brian. After a few long moments, I break our kiss. I need to make a few phone calls before my lawyer arrives, but I want you to be prepared for his intensity. He will drill you. He will need to know every little detail, and it will feel like an interrogation, but he's the best fucking defense attorney money can buy. I don't want to leave you alone, but I need to take care of a few things, I say, kissing her on the lips one more time before heading to my study. I read the messages from my attorney who was on vacation, but following my single text is on his way back to town to take care of this situation. I hit the accept button when my phone buzzes and I see his name show up on the screen. Lawrence Weston Barron III, the best fucking attorney money can buy. Can you tell me anything before I get there other than what I'm reading from the blotter and what's splashed all over the news? Larry asks. You already have the police intel? I ask. Brian, you do pay me to know more than you, he says, laughing. Fucking A, what do you have? I'm going to be straight with you. It doesn't look good. In fact, it looks pretty incriminating at first glance. She didn't kill the fucker, and even if she did, it would have been self-defense. But she didn't. You obviously have information that I don't. I'll listen to everything later, but her connections to the LaRuzio family are, well, let's just say that in and of itself adds to the perception of guilt. Larry, he fucking attacked her, raped her, and then came back to her condo for a redo. He tied her down to her own bed and was going to rape her again, but she shoved her foot into his nose and drove it into his sinus cavity. Too bad she didn't kill the fucker, but she didn't. She just broke his nose. I was there, and I was the one that beat the shit out of the asshole, not her. Brian, I'm your attorney. I can't listen to this, he says. No, you need to fucking hear this. He was alive when he left her apartment, and my security team dropped him off at the front entrance of the hospital. I took her home with me after that happened, and she's been with me ever since. I understand they removed a piece of bone from his nasal cavity, but he was alive. Brian, I didn't know about that, but it's not that simple. He was killed in a very dramatic way and left. I don't yet know all the details, but sounds like it was mafia related, and there are emails between her and Dominic Mancini, one of the biggest underbosses in the mafia. The ties between Torzial and the union money laundering scandal don't look good. Fuck. I don't have that intel. You need to lay all the details out for me and Scotty. He's in town right now, and I'll have him meet with us before you talk with Jenny. Be here before 2 so we have time to get her comfortable with questions before the police arrive at 3. I say, before disconnecting.